Hello, everybody out there, and hello, Erika. We made it.
Yes, we finally did. So sorry about the problem before, but I'm glad to be here.
As I said, it was not your fault. Sometimes between the ocean, the ocean in between us, it's problematic with technical issues. And for anybody who doesn't know Erika Robinson from New Jersey, Lenormand expert, and today with us to tell us very interesting things about Lenormand, perhaps in connection with tarot. And as I said, Erika, I'd really like to know how an American becomes a Lenormand expert, because it's not something so common in the States, as far as you told me.
No, it's not. So I got into Lenormand first from reading tarot, and I liked tarot. But I was in a car driving with two friends, and one friend passed the other one a deck behind her. She said, "Oh, I thought you might like this." And I looked at the deck, and it never made it to the back seat. I knew I had to have it, and it was Ciro Marchetti's Lenormand. And there was something that was pulling me towards it. I knew nothing about the system. But I began to learn it. There was only one book in English available. It was Sylvie Steinbach's Secrets of the Lenormand, which is still in publication and a very good book. But that was the only book. And what attracted me to the system was that it was a word language. Which makes it different from tarot. Yes, it is ink on cardboard. Yes, you're looking at pictures, but the pictures, however beautiful, are incidental to the archetypal image that the picture represents. A tree is a tree is a tree. It doesn't matter whether it's a willow tree or an oak tree. It doesn't matter. A tree is a tree is a tree. So these are words that you string together. So what happened was I learned all the rules. And I found a quote from Goethe when I realized I would be speaking to a German audience. And the quote is, I have a couple of them, but the first one is, "There are two lasting bequests we can hope to give our children: roots and wings." So Lenormand, of course, is a language which has a lot of rules attached to it, grammatical rules even. So you have to learn the rules. And I did learn the rules. I could cite them backwards and forwards. I memorized the numbers. I memorized the cards. I memorized the combinations. But I was upstairs in my bedroom, and I had drawn a grand tableau. And I was trying to read it, and I was so frustrated, to the point where I got teary-eyed because I felt there was something missing. Now, when I first got into Lenormand, I was a new widow. My husband passed about 15 years ago. So I'm sitting there trying to figure this grand tableau out, and I heard a voice in my ear. And it was my husband's voice. And the words were, "Erika, it's not childbirth." And I thought, wait a minute. First of all, that's my husband's voice. Second of all, I have no hearing in my right ear, none, from a child. I heard his voice in my deaf ear. That's number two. The third thing is, I said to myself, what does he know about childbirth? But then I thought, wait, he said it's not childbirth. So what is childbirth? Having been through it, it is painful. It is bearing down. It's hard work. It's focus and concentration. But he said to me in my ear, it's not childbirth. So what does that mean? It means, I realized, it's the opposite. I've done all of that root work that Goethe talks about. I did all of that hard bearing down, that memorization, that all of that. Now what I needed to do was to grow wings. And what did that mean? It meant letting go. I come to Lenormand from a spiritual perspective, as I do from tarot. Obviously, everybody doesn't do that. But my theory is that when I read, I'm not by myself. I got hired in a shop, and it was it's the shop that's the best known in the area. This was a few years ago. And I said, well, do you want to audition me? They said, no, we've heard about your work. Come work on the weekends. I said, okay. So I went. So I set up my table, and then I was getting ready to have my first sitter. And I said to myself, Erika, what happens if they ask you a question and you pull the cards, and then you look at the cards, and then you look at your client and you have to say, I don't know, beats me. What do you see? And I started laughing because I knew that would never happen. Why? Because here's what I believe. I believe when someone sits across from you, they've entered a contract. And the contract is that they have given you permission to enter the vault of their knowing, to go to where their higher self's knowledge is, and open that up, and then bring that information down. From where? From Kairos. The Greeks tell us there are two types of time, right? Chronos, time on the clock, time on the calendar, time on the watch, and Kairos, which is the fullness of time. So what I do with my cards is I get the question, and then I pull the cards, which take me to Kairos, the fullness of time. I get information, and then the cards act as a mitigating force, a translation device, so that I can take the words, the information from Kairos, and put them into Chronos language so that my sitter hears and understands. And what's beautiful is for the sitter to see, oh, wait a minute, she got that from someplace. Where did she get that from? Because I didn't tell her that. But it's a collaboration between myself, the sitter, and spirit. That's what I feel. So when my husband said it's not childbirth, he meant let go. And when you get information, just say what you see. Don't second guess yourself. I think that people who don't do well at reading, whether it's divining, whether it's Lenormand or tarot, it's because their ego gets in the way. So I think of my ego as a child that I put in the back seat of my car, not behind the driver's seat, because I don't want them kicking me. I give them an iPad and a juice box, and I let them stay occupied because they're not part of this. And I am as much a tool, an instrument, as the cards are, as the candle is, as any crystal. I'm just an instrument for the information.
So you are very visual in your stories, but you said that Lenormand is more a wordy system. So how does this come together?
I love that you said that. I love that you said that, because you're right. Words are words and pictures are pictures, but words can create pictures. And so we can have a Lenormand spread and be very basic. This. But what I do is I listen. I listen for what Kairos is telling me, because Kairos will give me the connective tissue between the cards. I always say you never read a Lenormand card by itself. They're not meant to be read individually. In the way, for example, that a tarot card, you can do a whole tarot reading with one card. With Lenormand, not so. I think of Lenormand as female, and I think of, Madame Lenormand. So, and I think of each card as having 35 sisters with whom they dance in different combinations.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's say that I pull a 3-card spread for someone. I look at the connective tissue such that those cards will speak to that person. What do I do if I have a second sitter who comes to me and I get the same combination? It won't be the same thing for that person because the cards dance differently. And I think people get confused because they think Lenormand is so simple and so basic that it cannot be a deep, eloquent, introspective oracle. In fact, it can. It's just a word language that easily can be combined with tarot to get a richer, deeper answer to a querent's questions.
So You mentioned that you think Lenormand has a grammar. What do
Yes.
you mean by that?
Okay, so here's what I did early on. I learned all the spreads, the 3 card, the 5, the 7, the 9, and then
Sorry, where did you learn them from? Did you
I learned. Why did I learn? Because that's what the book said to do. Remember,
okay,
roots
that's
first,
what
right?
yourself from the book. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Did my
Sorry.
homework. Did my homework, but then I needed to spread my wings, right? So I said, all right, let's take a grand tableau. A grand tableau will tell you a little bit about a lot of things, right? That's why, for example, I'll only do a grand tableau for myself maybe once a month, maybe once every couple of months.
Mhm.
But I said to myself, what if I want to know a lot about a single thing? So one little trick that I will tell you about Lenormand is that each card can be used as a significator.
Mhm.
So I said, okay, what if I want to know about moving? So I'm going to use the ship. So I have a spread that I created. And so I will shuffle the cards, and then one by one, I will flip until I get to the ship. I put that in the middle. The 2 cards that immediately preceded the ship will go to the left, and then the 2 that immediately would have followed the ship go to the right. Now I have a line of 5. That's a traditional spread.
Mhm.
Then the grammar part comes in. I said to myself, this line will function as a précis, a summary of what I'm going to see in a full reading. But where's the full reading? I'm going to pull 3 clarifiers or modifiers, is what we would call them in grammatical language, for each of those 5 cards. So think of those original 5, let's say, just for the sake of argument, as nouns. I'm pulling 3 vertical cards for each of those nouns, and those vertical cards can function as adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, etc., etc. But then, even more grammatically, I said, okay, so now I've got 20 cards. That's a nice box. It's 20 cards. And I said 2 things. One was, in the center, of course, is that ship, right? That's the center line, because that's the first card. The first 2 lines, I used to say that those were the past. I don't say that anymore, but you could say that past, and then you have that line of the present, and then you have 2 of the future. Is that not grammatical? Now what I say something different. I say, time is not as linear as people think that it is. So let those first 2 lines serve as sort of what went on before, so that we know, like if we go to see a play, they give you the playbill, and you see the cast of characters, and you see a little paragraph that orients you in time and space, right? That's what those first 2 lines do. Now, what's great about those 2 cards is these tend to be things that already happened. They're either states of mind, or they're events, or whatever they are. But when I read those first 2 lines, which I read first, the sitter will say, wait, that's true. Wait, that already happened. Wait. And it tells them I tapped into the right vault. So already now you have buy-in, right? And then we have the present, and then we have 2 lines of what's coming in. The other thing that I did was I said, okay, well, that's 20 cards, but here's the thing. I still have a whole bunch of cards in my hand. And I remembered when my daughter was a little girl, tiny, sitting in my lap, and it was time to go to sleep, and I would read her a story, and I'd get to the end, and the book would say in bold print, the end. So that's what I would do. I would say the end, because, it's time. And she always would turn to me, she would suck her thumb. She pulled her thumb out of her mouth, and then she would say, and then what happened? So after I got over the shock of hearing that the first time, I came up with something to say. I said, you know what? What a great question. What do you think happened next? You tell me. And then she would say, oh, the little bears went to the forest and had a party. And I would say, I bet you that's exactly what happened. That's great. So I thought of that because I still had cards in my hand after pulling that 20 card spread. So I said, okay, I'm not pulling another GT because why reinvent the wheel? I'm going to limit myself to 3 cards. And I'm going to pull those off to the side. And those 3 cards will serve as a postscript. Is there anything else? Sometimes they're confirmation of whatever I've seen already. Sometimes they're a caveat, like, watch out, think about this. But it just finishes off the reading. So it's very satisfactory. When you listen to a story, you can't, if I said the dog walked down the street, all right, we know a dog walked down the street. But if I say to you, the little white dog walked down the street, wiggling its back end, excited to, run up to me and lick me, all right, we have one version. What if I said the big black Doberman came up to me with its jaws, streaming with saliva, waiting to take a bite? It's a very different picture, right? And what I like to do with my readings and with the people whom I teach Lenormand to, I want to take them from the dog walk down the street to giving the sitter and the reader a really clear picture.
So fleshing it out.
Yes, to fill it out. That's right. And I don't make it up. I'm not making it up. The cards are showing it to me.
Yes, I like this idea. So you have kind of this reduced imagery of Lenormand is a skeleton, which you can use, like grammar is the skeleton of our language.
Think about people like, I'm sorry to be using Americans, but Emily Dickinson, and E.E. Cummings, right? Emily Dickinson she understood the conventions of poetry and iambic pentameter. She understood that. E.E. Cummings certainly knew the rules of capitalization. They knew the rules. They had learned and absorbed Goethe's roots. And then they took their wings and created art by deviating from
like a jazz player.
Consciously. Absolutely. It's not unconscious. It's all, it's conscious. I will say one more thing because I have this other Goethe quote, and the reason that I love it
but I'm so impressed that you pronounce Goethe correctly because
my name is Erika, so
okay.
in the genes, I don't know. Listen to this. My last name, my maiden name before I got married was Hageman, Hageman.
Wow.
So I said to my father one day, what does that mean? Because I was sure it meant something like princess of the universe, queen of the So he said to me, it means people of the hedges. I'm like, what? He said, like gardeners. I'm like, oh, well, talk about an anticlimax. But my whole maiden name is Erika Hageman. I do have German roots. So, but there's a quote by Shelley, the poet Shelley.
Yes.
And he talks about what a poet does. And he says, the poet's job is to understand the heretofore unapprehended relation between things. Well, look what Goethe says. Goethe says, in nature, we never see anything isolated, but everything in connection with something else, which is before it, beside it, under it, or over it. This is a principle of physics. Everything is energy. It's also a principle of divining. In other words, you have 2 really disparate, separate things. You have to take on faith what science and the poets tell us, which is that they may seem completely different, but they're the same. And your job as a poet, as a physicist, as a diviner, is to walk your way from the one thing to the other so that you've created the bridge. That's what good reading does.
Yeah, really, I really like that. I have a comment here which I wanted to show you sometime before, but you talk so interestingly that
Sorry.
no, it's don't apologize for that. So when you were talking about the structure of Lenormand, Marion was saying, finally someone has an explanation why I'm so bad with Lenormand. I always used language intuitively. That is why I always failed at grammar. And I know Marion is a very good tarot reader.
But let me make this easy.
Yes.
There is absolutely, and many Lenormand people will disagree with this, I believe there is an intuitive element to reading Lenormand, but it has to be layered on top of the rules, as I mentioned. And the rules are quite simple, really. Look, we all know that a noun is a person, place, or thing. We all know that a verb is an action. We all know that an adjective describes a person, place, or thing. And we know that an adverb describes an adjective or another adverb. That's all you need to know. That's it, period. And we all know past, present, and future. That's as much grammar as you need to know.
Yeah.
You don't need to know the subjunctive or the conditional. No, it's just those basic ways that language functions, which pure image does not. Pure image hits us in a different way. And that's why you can do a tarot reading from that sort of intuitive place from the beginning. You don't necessarily need to know that, the Three of Cups, has this, that, or the other astrological or religious or significance. You don't need to know that. You can be an intuitive tarot reader. I think that with Lenormand, your reading will be enriched if you learn the rules first and then deviate.
Which deck are you using when you're doing Lenormand readings?
I use all kinds, but you know what? I brought a special deck because, Germany. So this deck is called the Mondnacht Lenormand. Mondnacht. Yes.
I've never heard of this.
And it's quite beautiful.
Oh.
I'll show you. Wait. This for example is the heart. It's a German deck. Obviously.
Oh, lovely. I like this.
The moon, because of course here's the moon. We just had the summer solstice, so this is the sun. I have many decks. I love that one. I love the decks of Carrie Paris, the Lenormand Revolution, and
my favorite as well. Yeah.
And the Siren Song Lenormand. I have decks that are more whimsical in nature. What is this? Oh, well, I love Rana George's deck very much.
We have this too. It's great.
And she has extra cards in there that I quite like. I think they're really good. I left my whimsical deck in the other room. I have many, many decks. And how do I pick them? I don't know. I'm friends with a lot of Lenormand deck creators. So sometimes if I want to feel the energy of that deck creator close to me, I'll pick one of theirs. But I also do, as you mentioned, combine systems. So every week I write a blog entry and I pull first a tarot card because I am a Lenormand reader. That is my primary divination instrument, but I read tarot and have a lot of respect for tarot. So what I do is I always pull a tarot card first because when I sit down to write my blog, I don't have in mind what I'm going to write about. And I let the tarot card direct that. And then I use a system called the Adinkra, which is an African oracle.
Adinkra?
Adinkra, Adinkra.
Okay.
It's a number of symbols. I have 44 symbols, and they are sort of folk wisdom. And I pull an Adinkra card, and then I pull 3 Lenormand cards. So it's as though the sun is the tarot card. It's the thing that tells us what we're talking about. the Adinkra and the Lenormand help give us direction as to how to proceed. Because that's the thing about Lenormand. Lenormand is a very direct oracle. It is grounded in our lived experience. You will never see, well, I would hope, a Lenormand reader telling you what you were in a past life or what you're going to be in a future life. However, that said, do you know what I do with Lenormand that even kind of stuns me? And I'm very good at it. Mediumship. I only ever do mediumship through the cards, through Lenormand.
You did a talk with Christina Godet on this, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to link this in the show notes because I found this very interesting. Shadow work with Lenormand.
Right.
Yeah.
So Lenormand, even though it's grounded in our lived reality, I mean, for example, I remember doing a reading for a woman, and she wanted me to bring someone through. Her father came through, and I smelled cigarette smoke, and I heard him say with a certain accent, and so he didn't say, "I've got you." He said, "I got you. I got you." I said, "Listen, I'm sorry. This is how I come. I got you." She said, "That's exactly what he would say to me all the time. But it's through the cards. I don't want to see anything, not looking to wake up in the middle of the night, but through the cards, which are grounding for me, spirit will speak to me and I can get mediumistic.
I really like this. Yeah. I have one more question about the different decks you have. You said that Lenormand is very simple in its imagery. So what do you do with decks in Lenormand which are overloaded?
Yes, okay. For readers, see, you have artists and then you have readers. Sometimes they're both, but an artist is going to be primarily concerned with beautiful imagery. What's for a Lenormandist, they need that archetypal symbol. So, for example, if you have a card and there's a tree and then there's the moon, well, I mean, you have to look at the number to figure out which it is. Lenormand readers don't like that. Like, I just need to know which symbol are we talking about. That said, what's a great deck if you are a tarot person who want to sort of see how the systems can blend through using a Lenormand deck? Look at Monica Badierski's Lenormand. She's got a deck called oh my gosh, what's it called?
Did you say Monica Badierski?
Badierski, Bodiersky.
Okay.
Monica Badierski. What's it called? Oh, and I don't see it. It's not.
I'm sure somebody in the chat will look for us. Don't worry.
What's interesting is that in every Lenormand card, she has a little creature.
Lenkrad Tarot.
No, it's what is it? Hold on.
Don't worry.
All right, I can't remember. I'll let you know, and you can maybe let people know.
Lenormand Tarot, she says. It's a mixture of Lenormand and Tarot.
Yes, that's not the one that she has. Shadowland.
Shadowland Tarot.
She has the tarot deck. It's a Shadowland, but then she also has she has a Lenormand deck and a tarot deck. But the point is that in her Lenormand deck are these creatures. So let's take the bear card, for example. The bear means a lot of things, right? The mother. It has to do with weight issues. It has to do with financial stability. It has to do with a boss. It can be a narcissist. But in this particular picture, there's a bear. He's clearly ferocious because at his feet are a pile of bones. So obviously he has consumed someone. But at the top of his head is a little girl with a bow in her hair. And also there is a path right in the middle of this bear that indicates that this child has probably slid up and down this bear like a slide many times before. So what's that about? Could it not be perhaps that, do we really need to always be fearful of a bear? Are there not ways to master it, to tame it, to work with it? So it's a taroistic approach to reading Lenormand. It's very interesting. So it might be a nice bridge deck for people. But again, there are such things as Lenormand tarot. If I were you, I would do what Goethe says, roots first, then wings. Learn the rules of Lenormand, and then layer on other things.
Actually, this I started in 2000 also to look into Lenormand, and it drove me nuts.
Right.
I hated it. I hated it to bits. This learning of A plus B is C is
You
for
have
me.
to do that. But look, think about it. Every child learns to read that way, right? And yet we have the great writers of the world.
I know, but it's so much easier to do tarot. So.
Well, yes, I'm an academic at heart. I'm Harvard trained, so for me, it was an academic challenge, an academic exercise to learn the system. That's how I looked at it at first.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I had done all of that that I realized, oh, but wait, there's a whole different layer to it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really want to learn it as well, but it's really, I find it taxing, and I prefer to have lots of stuff on the card,
right?
Because it, like the Mystic Lenormand by Fichte, I don't know whether you know this. This is quite easy for me to use this.
Because you know why? Because you're reading it like a tarotist.
I know, I do. I'm ashamed.
You know what? No, it's fine. You won't. The police won't come if you do that. It's fine. You can. But as a pure Lenormandist, I would argue for the merit of. It's like where I grew up. I grew up in New York City. Harlem, East Harlem, and everyone spoke Spanish, except they really didn't speak Spanish. They spoke what we called Spanglish. So it was not one thing or the other. It was kind of neither. And so you could make yourself understood, but really, again, as an academic and as someone who loves language, learn the Spanish, learn the English, and then you can learn how to do the blending. Otherwise, you're being, otherwise there's a laziness attached, which is fine. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. But I think that you really learn the power and the depth of Lenormand when you learn how to use it in its original form.
Which brings me to something you're writing at right now.
Right. So I am writing this book, which will be a primer on how to read Lenormand. I walk you through the cards and through the spreads, and once I've shown you the roots, then I give you the wings.
I'm really curious about this. You said that in the States, America, there are not so many Lenormand books available.
No, there are not. There are not. There's Rana George's. There is Sylvie Steinbach. Just in terms of American books, those are the two that I can think of. And I mentioned to you before we came on the air, if you're really an academic person, Kathleen Matthews's book is great.
Yeah.
Very comprehensive. Bjorn Muris is another, but he's German. But yes, in English, hopefully this book will be something that American readers will find palatable and attractive, and hopefully other people around the world, because it's universal. It's a universal language.
Well, you are on social media and people can follow you from all over the world.
True.
I put your Instagram account into the show notes, and I will put your website there as well. Is on your website your blog as well?
Yes, if you go to my website, it'll say menu. And if you click on menu, you'll see my blog. And I write there once a week. And that's where I combine tarot, adinkra, and always 3 Lenormand cards.
Because this would be a good starting point for tarotists to get perhaps some of the roots you are talking about.
Yes, yes. These systems really do blend together very well when, you know, it's like a dance, right? Each partner in a dance has to know their steps. If you're doing the wrong step, then you're going to step all over each other. But if you learn what your steps are, you can dance beautifully.
I have another question. So one of our watchers is a Kipper expert. How is Kipper done in the States? Are there many people doing it?
No, they're not. No, Kipper is probably less known than Lenormand. Now, you know, of course, the thing about Kipper is that there are millions of people cards in there, and Lenormand only has the man, the woman, although most decks now fortunately have 2 men, 2 women for obvious reasons, the child card, and the child is only very occasionally an actual child. And then the 4th person is the rider, the person on the horse, and that person is actually incidental to the message that they carry.
Mm-hmm.
Kipper there are many, many more people, and it's a directional system. So I don't read Lenormand in a directional way. There are a couple of different ways that you can actually read Lenormand. But yeah, Kipper is less known than Lenormand.
Okay, but you obviously have looked into the system.
Yes, I have some knowledge of the system. Yes.
Interesting. And yeah, I'm really you really got me excited about Lenormand again.
That is my mission in life at this point. To get people excited. You know why? Because we think sometimes that we're all alone, but we're not. We're not. And every time I read it for a lot of people all the time, and I love doing it because not only am I reminding them, but I'm reminding myself of the fact that we are held and cared for and cried with and respected and seen by something greater than ourselves. And that to me is divination's purpose, is to show people that.
Yeah, it's really a nice word to finish off our talk, because I have something else to do today still.
Let me use my German. Guten Abend, guten Nacht. Thank you for showing
together
up.
now. But I'm a bit sad because I would love to talk to you longer. Perhaps we can continue our talk.
I would love to anytime.
It's really, yeah, I'm really excited, and just something Daniela's mentioned, which for people who are on other sides, we're watching from different channels, is perhaps interesting, that she likes that there's so much information in the spread, and that it doesn't need to draw many times in order to answer a question like we usually do in tarot. Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah, so interesting. And yeah, Kirsten is saying gute Nacht, Marion is saying gute Nacht. And next time we talk, you need to tell me about your German heritage.
Well, all I know is the Black Forest is involved. So I'll just say that much.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So we have another story. I'm sure everybody had a lot of fun. They are all very pleased and happy. And Erika, we will have another talk.
You know what? My goal is not to make people converts to Lenormand. Really, my goal is to expand the number of languages that people use to communicate. That's all.
You can't convert a tarot reader.
No, I know. I wouldn't even try. I just want to expand the repertoire. That's all.
I know.
So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And yeah, I got the show notes. How your day is still going on, right? You still have some 6 hours is the
Yeah,
difference.
it's about 4:15 here.
Okay, so enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you.
Hab
And
einen schönen Nachmittag.
yes, gute Nacht.
And everybody out there, we will continue our talk. Have a great evening, afternoon, wherever you are, and speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Und bald unboxe ich dieses Lenormand.